In life, there is no greater architect than the mind. Every day, with each thought we nurture, each emotion we hold on to, and every belief we accept without question, we are laying bricks, invisible yet heavy, silent yet loud in their effect, and before we realize it, we are standing inside walls we cannot see, bound by doors we never locked, trapped in a prison built not by others, but by ourselves. This prison is not made of iron or stone. It is made of fear, of regret, of limiting ideas, old wounds, and silent doubts. And just as we built it, one thought, one reaction, one choice at a time, we also hold the key to walk out, not by fighting, not by running, but by turning inward and understanding the source of the walls. This speech is not about escape. It is about recognition, about realizing that freedom was never out there. It was always within. You are not a prisoner, you are the builder, and what you build, you can unbuild. What you once believed, you can question. What you fear, you can face. Let us begin. From the moment we begin to interpret the world around us, we start forming beliefs, judgments, and interpretations that shape our reality. These internal frameworks become the foundation of how we see ourselves and our place in the world. Over time, through repetition and emotion, these beliefs become deeply rooted, often unquestioned, and silently govern our decisions and reactions. This is how the prison is built, not with force or external constraint, but with thoughts that seem so real, so convincing, that we stop questioning them. The idea that we are not good enough, not strong enough, not worthy of success or peace, these are the bars of the cell. No one imposed them on us. We accepted them, sometimes unconsciously, sometimes because they echoed the voices we heard in our upbringing, education, or society. The most powerful prisons are those we don't recognize as prisons. A person walking in a circle their entire life might think it's the only path available. Similarly, many live inside narrow mental corridors, not because there are no doors, but because they've forgotten doors even exist. We become attached to our suffering because it is familiar. We identify with our past because it feels safe. But this familiarity is not freedom. It is containment masquerading as comfort. The problem is not that limitations exist. It is that we believe them to be absolute, when in truth they are flexible, changeable, and often entirely imagined. We construct these limitations out of fear. Fear of failure, fear of judgment, fear of pain. These fears are not to be eradicated or denied. But when they are left unexamined, they start dictating the architecture of our lives. We avoid challenges because we fear defeat. We hold back our voice because we fear rejection. We silence our true desires because we fear disappointment. Each of these fears contributes another layer to the walls surrounding us. And the more we listen to these fears, the more solid the prison becomes. The less we try, the more impossible things seem. The more we doubt, the less we move forward. The prison doesn't grow through action. It grows through inaction, through hesitation, through surrendering to the voice that says, "You can't." Yet what built this prison was not reality, it was interpretation. The same event that breaks one person can strengthen another. The same challenge that paralyzes one can awaken courage in another. This is not because of the event itself, but because of the meaning we assign to it. If you've been told repeatedly that you are incapable, you might start believing it. But belief is not truth. It is a habit of mind. It is repetition, reinforced through internal dialogue. And because it was built through repetition, it can also be dismantled through conscious awareness and new habits of thinking. When we begin to observe our own thoughts, we create space, and in that space, something powerful happens. We recognize that we are not the thought. We are the observer of the thought, and if we are the observer, we have choice. This realization alone can shake the foundations of the mental prison, because now the question arises, what else have I accepted without question? What stories am I telling myself about who I am and what I can do? Are these stories empowering or limiting? Are they rooted in experience or in fear? The moment you ask these questions, the bricks begin to loosen. You begin to see that many of your limitations were inherited, absorbed, or built during times when you had no tools to resist. But now you are not that same person. You have awareness, you have will, and you have the ability to respond differently. The construction of the prison was unconscious, but the dismantling of it must be deliberate. Every time you act against the voice of limitation, a crack appears in the wall. Every time you choose courage over fear, the bars weaken. When you wake up early to train your body and mind, when you speak your truth despite trembling, when you move forward even with uncertainty in your chest, you are tearing down the architecture of that mental confinement. And the more you do it, the more you realize that the walls were never as solid as they seemed. They were made of assumptions, not facts, of memories, not realities, of fears, not certainties. This is why self-awareness is not just a spiritual idea. It is a practical weapon. It shines a light on the hidden patterns, the unnoticed habits, and the silent agreements you've made with your own suffering. You cannot fight what you do not see, but once you see it, you can question it. You can interrupt it, you can replace it, you can choose differently, and each choice lays the foundation for a different kind of structure, not a prison, but a path not imposed from outside, but built from within. A path that honors your potential, your growth. Your ability to adapt and evolve. Awareness is the subtle, yet powerful, awakening of the mind to its own movements. It is the light that reveals the unseen corners of our inner world, the observer that watches without judgment, the silent presence behind every thought and emotion. Most people go through life reacting to situations without understanding why they react the way they do. They repeat the same patterns, make the same mistakes, and wonder why nothing changes. But without awareness there is no clarity, and without clarity there is no freedom. To see the prison you've built, you must first become aware that you are inside it. The mind is constantly active, endlessly generating thoughts, opinions, comparisons, and stories. We believe that we are these thoughts, and because of that belief, we become entangled in them. We identify with anger, and so we act out of anger. We identify with fear, and so we hide. We identify with sadness, and so we withdraw. The cycle continues because we are not watching, we are becoming. True awareness interrupts this automatic process. It is the quiet but radical decision to observe rather than react, to notice rather than merge. It is stepping back from the storm and realizing you are not the storm, you are the sky in which the storm appears. Most prisons are sustained not by force but by habit. The habit of thinking in a certain way, the habit of feeling in a certain way, the habit of responding in a certain way. These habits are deeply ingrained, often formed over years of repetition and emotional conditioning. Awareness doesn't change these habits instantly, but it begins to loosen their grip. When you become aware that a thought is just a thought, not a command, not an ultimate truth, then you gain a moment of choice. And in that moment, you reclaim a piece of your power. This kind of awareness is not passive, it is active and disciplined. It means watching your mind when it wants to complain, to blame, to escape responsibility. It means noticing how you speak to yourself when you fail, how you treat yourself when you are alone, how quickly you reach for distraction when discomfort arises. Each observation, if done without judgment, adds to your strength. You begin to understand the roots of your behaviors. You see the beliefs behind your actions. You see the patterns repeating, not because life is unfair, but because you are unconsciously making the same choices from the same mindset. And once you see this, you cannot unsee it. But awareness is not just about noticing thoughts. It is about being present in your body, your breath, your environment. It is realizing when your shoulders are tense because of an unspoken worry. It is noticing how your chest tightens when you're avoiding a truth. It is catching the subtle way your energy drops when you agree to something that goes against your values. These are not small details. They are the signs that reveal the alignment or misalignment between your outer actions and your inner state. And when you are aware of these things, you begin to respond to life with intentionality rather than reactivity. To be aware is to take full responsibility for your inner world. It means no longer blaming others for your triggers, but asking what inside you is being touched. It means no longer waiting for the outside world to change in order to feel peace, but cultivating peace by understanding your own resistance. Awareness is not always comfortable. In fact, it often reveals uncomfortable truths about your ego, your attachments, your illusions. But it is only by facing these truths that you begin to transform them. Awareness transforms pain into insight. When you observe your suffering instead of fleeing from it, you begin to understand its message. Maybe the anxiety is showing you where you are not trusting. Maybe the anger is pointing to a boundary that needs to be reinforced. Maybe the sadness is the echo of a part of you that needs healing. These insights don't arise from analysis, they arise from awareness, quiet, consistent, and honest awareness, the kind of awareness that watches not with criticism, but with curiosity, the kind that doesn't rush to fix, but simply allows things to be seen as they are. This level of awareness is the beginning of inner freedom. You stop living in reaction to the past. You stop running away from discomfort. You stop being a victim to the movements of the mind. You start making space between the impulse and the response. In that space, growth happens. In that space, possibility is born. You are no longer a puppet of your thoughts, but a witness to them, and the more you witness, the more power you reclaim. You begin to move with clarity, not confusion. With intention, not impulse. With wisdom, not automaticity. And from this state, the walls of the prison begin to lose their meaning, because you are no longer confined by the invisible forces that once controlled you. Discipline and consistent practice are the tools with which one reshapes their internal architecture. The prison of the mind, once seen and acknowledged, cannot be broken with insight alone. It requires effort, deliberate, repeated, conscious effort. Discipline is the bridge between awareness and transformation. While awareness shines a light on the inner landscape, discipline is what walks the path through that terrain again and again until new ground is formed. Without discipline, insight fades into memory, and change becomes a passing thought instead of a lived reality. It is easy to have moments of clarity, moments of inspiration, but these alone do not change a life. Change happens when those moments are translated into action and repeated until they become part of who you are. Consistent practice is the anchor. It stabilizes the mind, strengthens the body, and aligns the spirit. When a person begins to cultivate a discipline, whether it is through breathwork, physical movement, meditation, or focused routines, they are reclaiming authority over the scattered nature of their energy. The undisciplined mind jumps, avoids, and escapes discomfort. It resists stillness, seeks distraction, and feeds the habits that build the prison. But when you bring the mind back to the breath, when you bring the body back into stillness, when you bring your focus back to the task, again and again, you are training yourself to stay, to endure, to witness, to remain calm even in the midst of internal turbulence. The power of discipline lies not in doing the extraordinary, but in doing the ordinary with devotion, waking up at the same time each day, sitting in silence even when the mind protests, moving the body even when the energy is low, practicing mindfulness even when thoughts are loud. These small actions, repeated daily, are what begin to deconstruct the patterns of self-sabotage, avoidance, and resistance. They become the counter-force to the years of unconscious conditioning. Each day that you show up for your practice, even in a small way, you are affirming a different identity, one that is capable, steady, and intentional. Discipline is not harshness, it is not punishment, it is care. It is the structure that supports growth. A tree needs the firmness of the earth to grow tall. Similarly, the human being needs structure, rhythm, and effort to expand beyond limitation. Discipline asks something from you, but it also gives something to you. It gives you strength, not just physically, but mentally. It gives you resilience, because you've practiced enduring discomfort. It gives you clarity because you've trained your attention to stay on what matters. It gives you trust in yourself because you've proven through action that you can be relied upon. The mind resists discipline because it prefers ease, familiarity, and instant gratification. But those very preferences are often the cause of inner weakness. The discipline to do what is necessary, even when it's uncomfortable, builds an inner strength that is unshakable. It builds the ability to delay gratification, to overcome impulses, to sit with uncomfortable truths, to take responsibility without excuses. This strength is not given, it is built. And the way to build it is to engage in the practices that stretch you beyond your current comfort, not once, but daily. Routines and rituals, when done mindfully, become sacred. The body remembers them. The nervous system stabilizes through them. They become a form of alignment. When you commit to a practice, whether it's breath work before sunrise, a cold shower, a physical training session, or mindful journaling, you are communicating to yourself that growth matters more than comfort. And over time, this consistent message rewires the nervous system, changes the internal dialogue, and dissolves the old identity that believed in confinement. Every action rooted in discipline is an act of breaking the inner prison. Because the prison was built by unconscious habits, the escape lies in conscious repetition. The choice to rise early even when tired. The choice to hold your posture even when the body wants to collapse. The choice to speak truth even when the voice shakes. These choices, made again and again, form new neurological pathways, new emotional associations, and ultimately a new self. Not the self shaped by old pain, but the self shaped by present intention. In discipline, there is freedom, because discipline removes the chaos of indecision. It silences the noise of inner conflict. It clarifies what matters. It creates momentum. When you become a disciplined person, you begin to experience life not as something happening to you, but as something you are actively shaping. You stop relying on fleeting motivation and start trusting your own structure. You stop being reactive and start being rooted. You stop living by emotion and start living by values. The practice becomes the path, and the path becomes the transformation. You hold the power to choose transformation over stagnation. Every moment presents a silent invitation to evolve or to remain the same. The choice is always yours, though it rarely feels that way. It often feels like life is happening to you, like you are reacting to circumstances beyond your control. But beneath the noise of external events and internal resistance lies a deeper truth, that you are the one interpreting, the one deciding, the one responding. And in that response is your freedom. Not the freedom of doing whatever you want, but the freedom of consciously choosing how you meet the moment. Stagnation is not simply the absence of progress. It is the presence of fear disguised as comfort. It is the repetition of old patterns, the recycling of familiar emotions, the clinging to what no longer serves. People stay in relationships that drain them, jobs that deaden them, and routines that dull them, not because they want to suffer, but because they fear the unknown. Transformation requires stepping into that unknown. It demands that you let go of who you think you are in order to become something more. It asks you to question your story, challenge your beliefs, and release your attachments. This is not easy, but it is possible, and the possibility begins with a single choice to stop running from discomfort and to start facing yourself. There is nothing passive about transformation. It does not happen to you while you wait. It happens through action, through risk, through intentional change. It begins when you decide to stop negotiating with your excuses, when you stop blaming your past, your parents, your environment, and your pain. When you realize that although you did not choose everything that happened to you, you are entirely responsible for how you carry it. That realization is not a burden, it is liberation, because it places the power back where it belongs, in your hands. Transformation is not a dramatic event. It is a series of small, consistent choices made with awareness and courage. Choosing to wake up when you said you would. Choosing to speak kindly to yourself instead of repeating old criticism. Choosing to move your body, to nourish it, to rest it, to honor it. Choosing to sit in stillness even when your mind resists. Choosing to let go of the bitterness that hardens your heart. Choosing to see challenge as a teacher rather than an enemy. These choices, made moment by moment, accumulate, and over time, they become your new reality. It is tempting to wait for the perfect moment to change, to wait for more time, more confidence, more clarity. But perfection is an illusion, and waiting is often a mask for avoidance. The perfect moment is the one you are in now. The conditions may not be ideal, but the power to choose remains. You don't need to have it all figured out. You only need to be willing, willing to try, willing to fall, willing to learn, willing to become. That willingness is the spark of transformation. And once it is ignited, it becomes a fire that lights the way forward, even in darkness. There is a false belief that people only change when they hit rock bottom, but that belief limits you. You don't need to suffer more in order to grow. You can grow from clarity. You can grow from vision. You can grow from the simple but profound realization that you are capable of more, that your life can be a reflection of your deepest values, not your deepest wounds. But for that to happen, you must stop waiting to be rescued. You must stop looking outside for answers that only exist within. You must take ownership of your path. Transformation is not about becoming someone else. It is about remembering who you truly are beneath the layers of fear, conditioning, and distraction. It is about stripping away the false and returning to the essential. This journey is not linear. It will have detours, setbacks, and plateaus, but each step is part of the process. Each moment you choose to grow, you reclaim a piece of yourself. Each time you say yes to your inner calling, you weaken the grip of your limitations. You start to embody a new way of being, not by force, but by alignment. Even in moments of doubt, you are choosing. Even in moments of hesitation, you are shaping your path. The question is not whether you have the power to change. The question is whether you are willing to use it. Your life is the result of thousands of small decisions. When those decisions are made from fear, the result is stagnation. When they are made from truth, the result is growth. The mind will resist, the body will ache, the ego will protest. But your deeper self knows. It knows what is possible. It knows the cost of staying the same. It knows that inside you is a strength untouched by your past, a clarity untouched by confusion, and a light untouched by darkness. You were never meant to remain confined by the walls you once built to survive. What once protected you may now be limiting you. But in every moment, you hold the power to see clearly, to act deliberately, and to choose differently. You are not the prisoner, you are the architect. With awareness as your guide, discipline as your tool, and the courage to transform as your compass, you can walk out of the mental prison you once called home. The key was never lost, it was always in your hand. And with each conscious step forward, you no longer run from who you were, you walk toward who you truly are.